Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be going through a lot of the Batman villains, and I have my favorite and then my least favorite portrayal of that villain. Um, so if you're wondering why there might be two Banes, two Jokers, that's why. Um, I wanted to kind of put in both because there isn't really a character in Batman's like main gallery of villains that I straight up dislike. Um, but there are definitely versions of the characters that I've been like, yeah, I hate that, or I do really like it. So we're going to start off with these ones on the side here. They were like last minute ones that I almost forgot about. So we're going to start off with Deadshot from the Arkham uh, games, the Arkham series. For me, they're just okay. It's just there's nothing really like great about the character in general. So I feel like they did the best with the character that they could. Um, Not like overly great, overly bad. So that's just where I put it. It's fun going up against them, but it's not really because so much the character is. It's just the game is fun and it's another villain. Next is the Deadshot from Suicide Squad. Just don't really like the movie. He just doesn't. I don't feel like he's Deadshot. He feels like they tried to make him almost like somewhat a hero. I just don't really like that. But and I've never really been a Will Smith fan, even before all that stuff. But I didn't think he was like the worst choice. It just wouldn't have been my pick. So that's pretty much it. I feel like it's more of a movie that he's in. But Killer Croc from the Arkham games. Um, so I'm going to move characters around. So if I put like Killer Croc in front of Deadshot, that means I like him a little bit more. And so uh, I'm going to put, for me, this same thing. It's more the movie than the portrayal. So I'm just going to put them there for now and move them around as I feel necessary. But yeah, Killer Croc in the games is just okay. There are times where fighting him is really fun, but he's not like a main villain, so you don't ever get like a really good boss fight. I'd say the best one is probably the one in Arkham Asylum. I think there's one in one of the other games, but I really don't remember. It's probably Arkham Origins, but don't exactly remember. So next is Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. I think he's pretty good. I think that's the best that you can do with Bane, other than him being kind of like a lackey for Talia al Ghul. I think he's really good. So for me, that's where he goes. And then the worst is definitely this is the worst. So I guess putting it, I'm just gonna put it there and move it as I feel like, because that is definitely like the worst version of any Batman villain I think to date. Like he doesn't do anything other than say Bane and then like break things. It's him and Batman and Robin is stupid. And then moving on to the Joker. Yeah, I mean he's the best for a reason. I mean if you've seen the movie, which most people that like Batman, I feel like have seen Batman, or I mean the Dark Knight, and yeah, Heath Ledger is definitely really good. Um, I'll talk more about some of these other villains, but I feel like like that one's pretty obvious. We all pretty much agree that Heath Ledger is like a perfect Joker. And then yeah, I didn't like Jared Leto. I didn't like the casting choice, and I don't like his portrayal. Um, I don't really think very many people do. I could be wrong on that, but I saw Suicide Squad like once, and I was struggling to get through it. Thought it was stupid. So yeah, I'm not going to rewatch that one. Um, Next is Poison Ivy from the Arkham games, and I would probably say that because I guess you do get a better boss fight, so we'll put her like there. Poison Ivy's never really been one of my favorite villains, but I do think in the games at least they do a good job of making her to be um, not so much of a villain at times, but whenever she is a villain, she is one. So I do think they did a good job there. And then the worst is definitely Uma Thurman's version, and like, it's not so much hers, so much like the way they like portray her. Um, she's like just so just she's too much, and I'm gonna go ahead and say this was like the studio wanting them to make this type of movie and them to be this like over the top animated and cartoon like. So I'm not going to hold it against her, but that is where she goes. It's kind of bad that that's the best portrayal and the only one like live action one that we've gotten. So that's where it goes for me. Next we have Ewan McGregor's Black Mask, only live action to date, and I'm gonna put him in good. He could be better for sure. I don't think that's anything Ewan McGregor did wrong, but there are moments in the movie he's really good, and then there are times where I felt like he could have been better. Um, so I do think the character of Roman Sionis is definitely underused. So I would like to see more of Black Mask, and that's kind of why for me, um, I'm gonna put him like here for just okay. I do think that the Arkham games kind of don't feature him enough. The only time where he's like sort of the main villain is Arkham Origins, and then it's revealed that he never really was, and that's why for me he's just okay. It's because he could have been more, and then they felt like they couldn't trust themselves to make anyone else a villain other than Joker. So that's the only reason why he goes there for me. Next is my personal favorite Batman villain, Mr. Freeze, and it's kind of tough because I do think like he is my favorite, so I want to put him ahead of Joker. But live action to me, when it's done right, just beats animation. So that's the only reason why I'm going to put him just behind Joker, or Heath Ledger's Joker. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you asked me like what is my personal like favorite villain, it's Mister Freeze because of the depth he has that the animated series brought, and just like the dialogue of how he basically just wants revenge for what they did to him and his wife, and I I really like it. It's always He's always been my favorite. I do like Joker, but I don't think that I guess I can relate to Joker in a way, but I feel like Mister Freeze is a more relatable character. So that's why I like him. And then uh, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mister Freeze. It is a miss, but I do have fun with him. So for me, he's probably going to be the top of miss, um, just because he's so over the top. I do love his suit, though. I think that they like did a really good job with making the suit of Arnold Schwarzenegger's Freeze. So I'm not like I don't totally hate that. I just think that he did the best with what they wanted. Like I can't imagine like any of the cast wanting to do that version of Batman and Mister Freeze and Poison Ivy, and I feel like they did the very best of what the studio wanted them to do. So like that's what they wanted Mister Freeze, and they got I think a good choice, and it's it's just funny how just dumb the ice puns are. Like I find them to be enjoyable. But next is Two Face, and that's Aaron Eckhart's version from The Dark Knight. I really like him, and I think he's really underrated. Just the kind of like transition from Gotham's like White Knight to Two Face, how he's like goes from being like model politician or DA to he just slowly, because of what the Joker turns him into, is this just now completely different person. And I do think that um, that is probably the best that they could have done with the character. Maybe something a little bit different, but I would have liked to see him more. But I do feel like with what they were planning on something else, and then because of Heath Ledger's death, they were like, okay, well, we already have him dying, so let's just stick with it, and I'm fine with that. Next is Tommy Lee Jones's Two Face, and yeah, he's bad. The only reason he's like not as bad as Bane is because at least he's got dialogue. but yeah, he's terrible. I don't like the casting choice. I think they just wanted big names to throw in there, and I feel like that was kind of why. I'm actually gonna put Bane up here. I think Bane's a pretty good villain. I just feel like just the fact that he's Talia al Ghul's like lackey or whatever is kind of what I don't like about him. Next we have Paul Dano's Riddler from the newest Batman movie. Just because we don't get enough of him is why I'm going to put him just behind Two Face. Whereas Aaron Eckhart's Two Face is we get through the whole movie, even though he's not Two Face through the whole movie. So, but that is, I think, the best that they've definitely done with the Riddler so far. And I kind of would like to see them bring him back in other movies. I would, because like they have the Joker featured in um, the Batman, and I wouldn't mind if they just had like other villains just featured, and they made maybe just make a small appearance like the Joker did, and maybe bring back Riddler at some point. That'd be kind of cool. So, and then for me, Jim Carrey's Riddler, uh, it's like yeah, I guess just I don't like him. He's terrible. I think I don't. I'm gonna be in the minority here, but I don't think Jim Carrey's very funny most of the time. And then him being like that, over the top, with a character that's more supposed to be subdued, and whenever he kind of like loses it, it's not like he just goes like full on crazy. He's just more like he can't stand that somebody's outsmarted him. I cannot seem to fit this in here, and I'm like super particular about it. But yeah. So I again, it's not so much that that's what they wanted the Riddler to be. It's just they wanted Jim Carrey to be, him playing the Riddler, and it's more him than the Riddler. So that's what I don't like. Um, and just because personally I don't find him funny, that's kind of why. Then we have the Penguin from the Batman. Pretty good. Oops, pretty good. I think there can be definitely more of him in the future, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they'll do. Um, Colin Farrell did a really good job. He's basically not even recognizable as the Penguin, and I think that uh, he had some really good scenes, and I'm looking forward to seeing some more. So, and then we have the version of the Penguin that I don't think is so much like bad. It's too far. Like Danny DeVito is like the perfect casting, but like the fact that he's just like eating fish, um, it's kind of too much for me. Actually, I'm gonna move this up just because I do find him a little bit more enjoyable than most people. Um, I don't like it per se, but I just find it fun, and I'll like randomly just quote him with like my friends that have seen the movie. But yeah, I do think Danny DeVito was like the perfect casting choice and did as good as he could have done with that weird version of the Penguin that eats raw fish and lives in the sewer. But it's just not as good as it really could have been, just because. And now we have Ra's al Ghul, who I think is again really underrated. Um, I would probably put him up, and he's low favorites, but I do like him a lot because I always thought that the Gotham or the Arkham games, the fact that he's like actually kind of like a god or whatever, or he can't be killed. He's got this like fountain of youth thing. I didn't really like that so much, but in this, it's just Ra's al Ghul is more of an idea, and this is Ra's al Ghul, like this is that one. And I imagine that like the name maybe gets passed down, or at least even if it's not, he's not completely um, immortal. It's just maybe his like presence is immortal, and he's the one that trains Batman. And I think Liam Neeson did really good with that. And I don't think he could have been any better. So for me, this is also a miss. It just again, like I said, with the games, it's just the fact that he's like immortal. That's really the only thing I didn't like. But I don't mind every once in a while getting different versions of the character. That is probably how the comic book of him is I don't really read comic books so much as I know about the characters from like the animated series. That's what I grew up watching, so that's how I know all of these characters. I don't really read comic books; it's not my thing. And then next we have Talia al Ghul, that um, I think was done best in the games, which is opposite of her father. Um, I think that she was pretty good and effective in those games. You really get the chemistry that they had, and that Batman, or Bruce, I guess, and Talia had. And whenever he makes the choice to not like save her father, um, she doesn't want anything to do with him afterwards, but she doesn't totally hate him. Like in this, I think she's pretty bad. I think it's a miss. I'm actually gonna put her below. I think Poison Ivy, because at least like Poison Ivy feels like the character. Well, I forget the actress's name that plays her, but I just didn't think that her death scene alone puts her like this low. It was terrible. It's like the worst acting in the entire Dark Knight series. It's like, what are you doing? That death was terrible. So for me, she's gonna go there. And I know that actors can act better than that, so I don't know what happened there. But next we have Scarecrow. Um, it's funny because I cheated with this one a little bit. I don't think there's a bad portrayal of Scarecrow. So he is my favorite. So I'm gonna put him. So this is Batman Begins down here. This is what I guess I'm getting at. So this is the Batman Begins Scarecrow. So I'm gonna put him um, just ahead of Two-Face, because I do think he's really good, and I like that for a large portion of it he is like the main villain. But I don't feel like the that Scarecrow ever gets his, other than in Arkham Knight, ever gets his like true, I guess, potential maximized. And here is, because it's live action. Just for me, it's going to beat out video game and animation. Um, and then the only reason why I put him as the worst in the Dark Knight is just because he's not really in it. Like, it's cool, I guess, that they threw him in there, but he makes that small cameo, but he's only in it for like literally maybe a minute. So that's just for me. I'm just gonna put him there because like I still like the character, and it's kind of like, oh cool, they threw him in there for a minute, but you know that's really why he's so low. Um, so we have Catwoman. This is Anne Hathaway's Catwoman. I personally really like her. I'm gonna put her there because I think that she fit well with Christian Bale, and I like her more. Uh, her and Christian Bale I like more than Robert Pattinson and I forget her name. The actor Zoe Kravitz that plays Catwoman. I'm just not. I guess I don't dislike it. I just don't really like that Catwoman as much. And then Batman Returns. They have good chemistry, but I just don't really like that she's like kind of a cat. That's really my only problem. So I feel like that's the most realistic Catwoman, and I like the chemistry she has with Christian Bale. She's not like a favorite, but I think that's my favorite version of it. And then the worst, Halle Berry's Catwoman. I saw this so long ago, I don't remember it, but I'm just gonna put it there. I don't think it was again her. Uh, she's fine as like looking like Catwoman. It's just the movie was terrible from what I remember. Um, and so this one, I kind of have to preface this. They're both really good, but the only reason I have Margot Robbie's, that is my least favorite, is just because of the movie. Um, so like I'm not gonna put her low, but I think the Arkham games did the character better. Um, so I'm gonna put her here. So yeah, I just think that the games did a better job of portraying Harley Quinn and has her doing better things or making her spot in the game better than in this movie. It's just Suicide Squad is so bad. She's like the best of a terrible movie. Like she's the only part of that movie that I think is like watchable. Um, I just don't like anything else, so I'm gonna put her in between. Oh, hold on. Actually, I mean, she does do a good job. It's kind of like tied. I'm just gonna put her up here. Um, yeah, so I'll put her there. Um, and then this is the last one is Victor Zaz. So, uh, yeah, I guess there's fine because he's not really like a main Batman villain, and in the games, you get enough of them, and you feel like they don't overdo a average like middle tier villain. Um, but he's still good enough that you don't feel like you got ripped off of seeing the villain. But the live action Victor Zaz, I don't think is good. So this is where I'm gonna go. I just think he's slightly better, but he's still pretty bad. Um, he's not that bad actually. I'll put him there. That's a little more fitting. I've seen Birds of Prey more than I have these other movies. Um, well, maybe not like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, but so this is where I'm gonna put these characters. I'll go through it really quick and see if there's any I want to move around. And like I said earlier, they're in the order of which I would say best to worst. Um, so I would definitely say that you can't get much better than Heath Ledger's Joker. Personally, the animated version of Mr. Freeze is my favorite. That's the best Ra's al Ghul that we're going to get. Scarecrow is really good. Um, and that is like probably the best portrayed version of him. He feels like at times he gets the better of Batman the first time that he encounters him, where he gasses him and he's just completely unaware of what hit him, and then you come to learn that it's the fear toxin that he uh, kind of experienced whenever he was with Ra's al Ghul in the mountains. And he couldn't have gotten a better version of Two Face. So far, that's the best version of the Riddler. That's the best version of Bane. That's, I think, the best version of Penguin. These two are pretty much tied, so I'm just going to put them there. Neither one are bad, so they're both really good. And if she was in better movies, she would definitely be up even one of these two. It's just she's had so many like I think the best is either Birds of Prey or the second Suicide Squad, and probably Birds of Prey just because she's more the main like character. But still, nothing like you don't ever get her in like a movie like The Dark Knight where she could have high potential, which it's because she's such a comical character that I feel like they've never put her in a better movie. It's because they want to do like a more realistic portrayal, and I don't think Harley Quinn fits as well because she's so comical, and when you're trying to go for like a serious tone, you can't really do that. So I can see why they haven't done it. And then Anne Hathaway's Catwoman is good. Um, and Roman Sionis, that's the best we've had to date. But I still feel like there could be more with him. I'd like to see more. It's just the character I like Mr. Freeze a little bit more than most people. Like I said, he's my favorite. Danny DeVito's Penguin, still pretty fun at times, and he's funny despite the weird eating raw fish thing. Uh, Arkham City and Arkham Knight and all those games. Poison Ivy's pretty good. Killer Croc is fun. Zaz is all right. Black Mask has missed potential, but still good. Talia al Ghul not featured too much, but she's still better than the live action. Deadshot's just not a character I particularly think is all that great. Scarecrow in The Dark Knight is just okay because he doesn't really do anything, and that's I think just the worst version just because he doesn't do anything. Um, Ra's al Ghul in the games just because he's like kind of immortal, but he's still a fun boss fight. Um, Poison Ivy, just too much. Bad acting at times, and I honestly just didn't really think that she was that great of a character in that movie. It kind of just feels like it was out of nowhere. Uh, and then that Victor Zsasz could have been better for sure, and I don't think it's the actor. I just think it's the writing, and he feels like he wasn't so much a serial killer, it's just like a henchman, and he doesn't do nearly as much as Zaz is a serial killer, and he's just kind of underutilized, and he doesn't go where he should. Deadshot, just kind of again not really a character I like, but that just because there's only two versions that I've seen, so I just got to put Will Smith just lower. Killer Croc, don't think a live action Killer Croc so much works, and in that movie it's terrible because the movie's terrible. I don't remember enough to say enough about. Don't like Jim Carrey's Riddler. He did, I think, the best they could have done with such a stupid version of the character. Jared Leto, bad movie, bad laugh, just terrible. Not featured enough. And then Tommy Lee Jones is Two Face. Doesn't feel like Two Face really. He's just weird. And Tommy Lee Jones wouldn't have been my choice. And then just Bane does nothing. So that's why he's so bad. So that was a quick recap. Let me know what you guys, where you'd put some of these. Hope you enjoyed this. I want to do some Batman stuff now that the Batman has come out, and I wanted to talk about some Batman movies and villains. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.